Welcome everyone to this advanced CTE virtual learning series, a review of the Building a Diverse CTE Leadership Pipeline Toolkit, intentional development of aspiring CTE leaders. And again, this is a part of the advanced CTE virtual learning series. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and go to our next slide and do some brief introductions. So as you may be aware, this is the Advanced CTE Building a Diverse CTE Leadership Pipeline Toolkit was the work of the individuals that you see here. Myself, I'm the Senior Advisor here at Advanced CTE. Ms. Amy Hodge is the Membership Policy Associate who's integral in the success of the fellowship. Ms. Jody Longelati is also integral. She's our Senior Communications Associate. And our Deputy Director, Dr. Emily Pashas. Today, we have with us some very special guests. Our guests are Dr. Tempestt Adams from Cohort 2 of the fellowship. She is an assistant professor at Appalachian State University. We also have Nancy Ligus. Nancy comes to us from, let me close this out, the chat. Director of Workforce, Continuing Education and Economic Development for Pierpont Community and Technical College. And Mr. Antonio Warren, Education Consultant at Calhoun ISD. Nancy comes to us from Cohort 2, and Tony, and we have his full name listed here, Antonio. Tony is a member of Cohort 1, our inaugural cohort of the fellowship. So we have them here to definitely share with you their experiences with the fellowship. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions at any time, we encourage you to submit them via the Q&A box on your screen. You're also welcome to contribute to the conversation by typing in the chat box. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So our webinar, today's webinar is focusing on the Leadership Toolkit, and we wanted to definitely give you a description of why Advanced CTE developed this resource. As the nation places greater emphasis on workforce development, there's a recognition that we need to build spaces for our leaders to gain or be exposed to the skills necessary to be an effective post-secondary CTE leader or a CTE leader in general. So here, the one thing that we emphasize is mentoring and offering resources and network opportunities for aspiring CTE leaders to ensure, again, that they have the skills to build a dynamic CTE ecosystem. The Diverse Toolkit provides state leaders with specific examples of administrative processes, guiding questions to assist with tailoring the toolkit to your needs, and resources to replicate the promising practices that we use in administrating the Post-Secondary State CTE Leaders Fellowship at Advanced CTE, sponsored by the ECMCF Foundation. So here are our objectives. The objectives for today, we're going to go through a review of the sections of the toolkit and the resources available for the recruitment of the CTE Leadership Pipeline Program and the fellowship's focus on racial equity. We're going to share the successes of the fellowship and fellow accomplishments. I'll go through a few data points, and then you'll get to hear directly from those fellows. And then we definitely want to share with you a unique opportunity, a pilot of our in-state fellowship that we'll offer to one lucky state that would like to replicate the work of the fellowship. So using the toolkit. So there are 4 parts to the toolkit, and I'll briefly review those portions or those sections of the toolkit for you. Part 1 is an introduction to building a diversity leadership pipeline toolkit, where we talk to you for making the case. The one thing that we often have to ensure that we do is give the data and the purpose for why we believe that states should invest in building their leadership pipeline. Second is an overview of our fellowship to talk you through some of the activities that our fellows conducted during the fellowship, and to talk about some of those best practices that were applied during that fellowship. And then most importantly, we have a guide This guide walks you through the process of building a leadership fellowship, CTE leadership, and building your own fellowship with guiding questions, recommendations, and additional resources to assist CTE leaders. And then finally, as you're working through that guide, we have a workbook where you can customize and step-by-step walk through your process for developing a leadership pipeline using the guide, reading through the recommendations, and determining what works best for you to include your state, your region, or your local CTE agency. So now we'll go ahead and jump into the introduction to building a diverse CTE leadership pipeline toolkit. This introduction, as I mentioned, making the case. Why is it important to develop a diverse leadership pipeline in your state? The CTE participant enrollment would give you data on the demographics of the typical American learner and how those demographics are shifting to a minority population. Then we go into the CTE leadership. What is the current state of CTE leadership? Looking at the data that's associated with our current leaders. 87% of the state CTE directors that responded to an advanced CTE 2019 membership survey were 87% white. And then, of course, representation. To ensure that CTE leaders look like CTE learners, we must diversify the CTE workforce. Next, we'll have a quick conversation about building a diverse CTE leadership pipeline toolkit and overview of the Advanced CTE Leaders Fellowship. So in this overview, we want to make sure we share with you the core components of our fellowship. The fellowship aimed to strengthen fellows' competencies in 6 areas. Lead with an equity lens, have a strategic mindset, and be a strong advocate. Now, the one thing that we definitely recognize that the emphasis on equity and diversity comes in all shapes and sizes. And we definitely don't want to leave out allies of this work. And that to be an advocate doesn't necessarily mean that you are a person of color, but that also means that you have an equity mindset when you apply leadership principles. Build relationships with partners. We definitely walk our fellows through that process by exposing them to different organizations and different opportunities to build their social capital, i.e. network, and commit to high quality policies and programs, which is an emphasis here at Advanced CTE, and be data driven. The one thing we definitely emphasize is that equity begins with data and evidence. So let's talk about the fellowship design. The fellowship design, we go back to the previous slide, please. The fellowship design is our 7 half-day virtual workshops. And what we spread those topics across workshop curriculum that focuses on an equity mindset and being data-driven. One aspect that we're truly proud of is our coaches. Our coaches are individuals that are not selected simply just for their background and their experiences, but we match those coaches based upon the request of our applicants and our fellows who are selected for the fellowship. And when we recruit those coaches, we send those coaches the bios of the individuals that we selected for the fellowship. So yes, they come for the curriculum. Yes, they come for the opportunity to share their experience and background, but they also come, most importantly, for the fellow that we have matched them with. And then finally, they complete a real world project. And we'll go into that a bit more later. But quickly, we'll talk about other elements of the fellowship. National Advisory Committee, a 13-member National Advisory Committee from numerous organizations across the U.S. that are either focused on equity lenses in respect to how an institution or organization is administrated, but also individuals that have background and knowledge within post-secondary CTE. The workshop curriculum, we do want to acknowledge that the Advanced CTE staff work closely with ESG to develop a 15-month-long fellowship, and that's all of the articles and research and resources developed for the fellowship. And then we'll talk about selecting the fellows. 5 groups of 3 national advisory committee members, plus a member of the advanced CTE staff reviewed every application. So it just wasn't an advanced CTE decision, that we brought in our partners and involved them extensively in the review and selection process. Next, we'll talk about the guide itself. The guide has some distinct elements, as we discussed earlier, of walking you through and how to walk you through building your own fellowship or leadership program. The one aspect of it is that we directly tie to whatever section or recommendation that we're making. We ensure to tell you our story. We provide you with examples of how we administrated on a case-by-case basis and using case context of how we administrated the fellowship and some of the policies and practices that were implemented within the fellowship. And then we give you guiding questions associated with the workbook so you can walk through and make those decisions that best fit you, your state, your region, or your local institution or agency. And then we provide recommendations. Again, some promising practices that were used that we felt made our process highly successful, and we'll go through those numbers to really share with you the successes of the fellowship. And then additional resources. So we provide supplemental resources to help you with launching your fellowship, to include a stakeholder mapping exercise, and even videos that you can use for recruitment for your fellowship as you tailor it for your needs. And then, of course, you can click on each of these. Each of these has a table of content that allows you to walk through the guide itself, so you can move to the section that you feel are most pertinent and important to you in the development of your CTE leadership program. The guide. So these are the sections of the guide and the subsections. And again, it is a thorough, detailed, step-by-step process by which we walk you through how to build a CTE leadership program. We start with getting started, assessing the landscape, having you take a look at your state, your region, or again, your local institution, and having a conversation about what you may actually need, the skills you would like to see within the individuals that are in your leadership pipeline, or the aspiring leaders, what they may need to be successful, again, within your state, region, or local institution. And then, of course, selecting your advisory committee. That's where the stakeholder map comes in. We have an opportunity to really think about who needs to be a part of your selection committee. Designing your program, selecting your audience, defining core competencies. Again, identifying the skills and the competencies that are necessary within your state, region, or local institution. Establishing the program structure. We use a virtual structure for our program, delivered the content virtually. You may decide to do it in person or virtual, but that's something you'll have the capability in the process to decide. And developing applications and selection criteria. We felt as though that process led to the success of the fellowship, the individuals that were chosen, and our process for selecting them. Launching and executing your program. Again, recruiting the right fellows. You may have the selection criteria in place, but you also need to effectively recruit the right individuals to be a part of your program, having an equitable selection process, and most importantly, as we think about individuals that are aspiring leaders, ensuring that they have the social capital to be an effective leader. A deep dive into the program elements. We walk you through our entire workshop design and delivery, the selection and role of coaches, and of course, the real world project. And that's something that fellows select during the application phase that's implemented throughout the 15-month fellowship, from the approval of the actual real world project once they're selected, to the final product where they are able to present to stakeholders and experts to give them feedback. And then post-program activities. How are you capturing those success stories? We'll share with you how we captured ours. We completed our Journey to CTE Leadership video series. And then, of course, the important aspect of it, as you build these leaders, you want to stay connected to them as you move them throughout your system, is staying connected. How do you keep them connected to the work? And how do you ensure that as a state, region, or local institution, you still have access to that body of knowledge that's been developed through your leadership program. So for an additional resources, I talked about the workshop design and delivery. We actually give you the annotated we develop an annotated bibliography that walks you through every aspect and every element of the curriculum that was used for the fellowship. And we break it down into 3 phases for the curriculum design and the resources used during the fellowship. And in those phases, we talk about building that historical knowledge, building that skill, and then how do you bring all of those skills together and invite other individuals to be a part of it? How do they engage stakeholders and partners? So now we get to the workbook, doing the work, recording how you're going to do the work within, again, your state, region, or local institution. With this workbook, you can actively design your program as you work through building your leadership program. Convene with CTE leaders and stakeholders in your state. It's a great opportunity to record your thoughts, again, around defining and assess, around doing your landscape. So you can record each of those aspects, and then, of course, list out those stakeholders and conduct the stakeholder map activity. And that's where the stakeholder engagement table and the exercise walk you through step by step through that process. So to talk a bit about the success of the fellowship. So, and we're very proud of these facts. Cohort 1 of our fellowship, 72% were individuals of color. Over 50% of the individuals that completed cohort 1 applied to and were accepted to a doctoral program. And then cohort 2, there were 74% of those individuals were individuals of color. And then another factor we're extremely proud of, even though we're on an arc of success of 3 to 5 years post-fellowship, that even during the fellowship, that over 48% of our fellows advanced in their individual careers. So those are just some examples of the successes of the fellowship, but the best way we believe to really share with you the success of the fellowship is to talk to the individuals who are an alumni of the program themselves. So with that being said, we're going to share a few of those fellowship experiences, and we'll begin with Ms. Nancy Ligus.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. Just to start out about my shared experience, how the fellowship assisted with the development of my real-world project. My real-world project is really a reflection of the confidence that I gained from participating in the fellowship. It inspired me to move ahead with my project really as a leader and an advocate. From the research to the data validation to writing, project implementation, I felt supported and encouraged the entire process. I've been working in West Virginia in post-secondary education in community college, workforce development, which is focused on credential attainment through short-term training that leads to fast entry into the workforce. So as a state leader, I've participated in numerous consortiums and committees at the state level and regional levels. And the purpose of those was to increase skills attainment, career pathways, advancing careers through CTE, with the end goal, of course, was to improve workforce participation and economic development in the state. The fellowship, the cohort, the workshops, the speakers truly broadened my thinking and understanding as to what diversity in Appalachia in our rural communities truly look like, and what those cultural barriers exist in these disadvantaged and marginalized populations. This helped me create my strategy for my real-world project, which really centered on creating more opportunities for equity and access to CTE in rural distressed communities, which in my project was through local workforce ecosystems. With regards to the importance of building social capital, I feel that my participation in the fellowship is not only respected by the greater advanced CTE community, but it's inherently credible with the backing of the ECMC Foundation. I came into the fellowship, and I remember from my application indicating that I wanted to become a mentor in my field. Not that I know it all, but over the many years, I've gathered some real life lessons and wanted to share my experiences. And what happened through the fellowship was I became a mentee. In addition to our cohort, whose own experiences were very rich and diverse, our leaders in advanced CTE and the subject matter experts who spoke in our workshops and at the conferences provided a huge resource repository of experiential learning. And now I feel certain that I can call upon anyone for assistance within this interconnected peer network because I don't know it all. And as I'm seeking new opportunities in the CTE space, I feel even better positioned now. Part of our fellowship that had a tremendous impact for me was having the coach mentor. The coach mentor is a proven methodology for developing leadership competencies. And I experienced this firsthand in the fellowship by having a very highly regarded coach who is accessible and accountable. My coach was assigned to me based on our similar backgrounds in workforce development in the Appalachian region. And although it was a little intimidating at first, she was quickly able to put me at ease and assure me that her role was to support me and assist me to reach my project goals. And she really was all that and more. She helped calm my fears of inadequacy at times, and she took a special interest in my personal and professional situation because as a leader, that you know that there are peripheral issues that might affect your participation in project completion. She provided me wonderful sound advice and helped me to identify steps to be successful, and she did it with care and compassion. This feature of the fellowship, the mentor coach, for me was vital to completing my real world project and also moving forward as a leader in post-secondary education. So overall, the fellowship for me was an amazing experience in building my leadership capacity. And now I'm proud to say I'm participating as an alumni.
Thank you, Nancy. We truly appreciate those comments. And just a reminder, there will be a Q&A session of this webinar, and you will have time to ask questions of the fellows. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our cohort 2, another cohort 2 alumni member, Dr. Tempestt Adams.
Hello, everyone. I would definitely echo Nancy's sentiments and experiences. And so I'll share a little bit about my experience, just talking about a couple of things. So the first thing is the development of my real world project. And I want to highlight the program's curriculum. So given the fact that we started with and that the curriculum is grounded in equity-minded leadership, we continuously revisited that work. It challenged me to focus on an issue right in my own backyard that would bring to light ways that my program could begin to enact equity-minded change. And so I really credit the fellowship for exposing me to that framework that ultimately assisted with the development of my project. And so my project focused on overcoming barriers to diversifying the CTE teacher pool, and the tools gained from our training sessions. I believe those really helped me take what originally existed as just this small idea that I kind of wanted to do, and maybe one day I'll get to it, and ultimately allowed me to create something that can fuel my work and continue to sustain that work as I move forward in my career. Another thing related to kind of the social capital aspects of the fellowship, in my work as a CTE teacher, educator, and leader, having shared values to achieve a common purpose is critical. And so, for example, at my institution, I think they would agree with me that my colleagues and I all share this purpose of, and I would even say passion for, preparing excellent educators to enter our CTE classrooms. And so the role of the fellowship really stretches that social capital even further, because now we're connecting with like-minded people, pushing for enhanced leadership development and equity for everyone connected to CTE on a national level. And so I'm truly grateful for the opportunity that now I know and get to continue to work with colleagues in Texas and Mississippi. And because of what I learned from them, it will make CTE better here at home for us in North Carolina as well. And so the final thing is referencing the role of the coach in the fellowship. Having a coach was one of my favorite aspects of the fellowship program, but there are a lot of great moments in there. My coach was the director of CTE for her state's community college board. And so being able to learn from her and get guidance on things to think about as I tackled my real world project was simply invaluable. We met on a regular basis, and to me, her mentorship wasn't just for the real world project. Obviously, that was a big focus of it, but her nuggets of wisdom are sure to continue to sustain me as I continue to work on tasks related to the project. And as I simply work to advance in my career, I think it's safe to say that all our coaches brought real world and on the job expertise that will simply help us elevate our work as fellows.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Thank you for sharing that. And next, finally, but definitely not least, we have Mr. Tony Warren. You're on mute, Tony.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and thank you, Nancy and Dr. Adams. When I think about the fellowship, there are 4 words that come to mind: leadership, advocacy, collaboration, and systemic change. How the fellowship assisted with the development of my real world project, I think it was a combination of the 8 workshops, case studies, the group work, the extended learning opportunities, and guidance and support from my mentor, as well as the other fellows that were in cohort 1. You got to remember, we were the first cohort. So I like to acknowledge that Dr. Corkhill, who had done some work in dual enrollment, aided in the development of my real world project. And then there was some other fellows that engaged in some late night studies together while we were fleshing out some of the details on how to formalize our projects. And then as I look at the workshops, I'm reminded that it was workshop 1 focused on equity-minded change leadership, and workshop 4, which increased my capacity to use data and identify and intervene and close equity gaps in CTE, including admissions, access, programs, and outcomes. And my real world project focused on increasing access to dual enrollment students, Black students in particular. And my current job at my current institution is an education consultant for counseling and career development. So it was workshop 4 and workshop 1 that align nicely with my work. The importance of building social capital and peer mentoring. I see social capital and peer mentoring as fundamental pillars of professional success. And the fellowship in its totality was centered around social capital and peer-to-peer networking. It allowed me to engage with individuals from diverse backgrounds. It nurtured my personal growth and my cultural awareness. And through those interactions, it facilitated knowledge sharing and skill development, which was the focus of the fellowship, was to prepare us for state level and post-secondary leadership positions. And lastly, about social capital and peer-to-peer networking, just being on this webinar today, it enhances my professional visibility and fosters a positive reputation in the industry. Now, the impact of having a coach and a mentor in post-secondary CTE, as a former college athlete and current high school basketball coach, I think I know a little bit about the importance of having a mentor and a coach. And that part of the fellowship was invaluable. My mentor provided me personalized guidance and support that was specifically tailored to my needs to help me develop and complete my real world project.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Dr. Adams. Again, the success of the fellowship itself is by its product. And wow, I tell you, while they came to the fellowship with a wealth of experience and background, we were proud to be the organization that highlighted such fantastic individuals to ensure that they are the next wave of post-secondary CTE leaders. So now we'd love to entertain any questions that you may have for our fellows. From our alumni of the fellowship, and please place those answers, those questions in the chat. Now, until we have any questions coming in from our chat, I did want to ask one follow-up question of each of the fellows here, of the alumni members here. I keep saying fellows, I do apologize. So when you think about your experience in the fellowship, what to you, as we promote our process and we think about our leadership pipeline toolkit, and again, sharing our processes and practices, what to you was, and you already mentioned a number of different memorable things, but what to you was a significant memorable event within the fellowship that you would like to share? And I'll start with Tony.
Well, thank you for that question, Dr. Johnson. I would say serving as middle grade learners through career supports, I had an opportunity to collaborate with one of the fellows in cohort 1 and an assistant director of CTE out of Ohio, and we collaborated to put a presentation together at the Advanced CTE fall meeting in October 22. So I think that was one of the many highlights. You asked for one, so I'll follow the rules. That was the one highlight of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. Dr. Adams?
I would share the ECMC collaborative convening when we got together and went to Nashville. As I'm in academia and I go to research conferences all the time, and I'm not always with my CTE folks. And so just being in sessions, really working with people across the nation, networking opportunities, discussing CTE specific topics and issues and solutions was really a highlight for me.
And Nancy?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree that the last fall in our fall meeting in Baltimore, this was toward the end of our cohort 2 experience, and coming together after all of those virtual meetings with our cohort and seeing everybody in person was just so wonderful, because we were able to share our experience face to face and hear from cohort 1, see the elevation of cohort 1, as you know, they'd been beyond the cohort for about a year or so. And it was just a tremendous experience to meet up, share, see each other, and it was just really a beautiful opportunity to see everybody in person and really connect.
Thank you, Nancy. Tony, we have a question in the chat for you. What was the impact of dual credit enrollment increase of African-American students enrolling in the classes? And again, this is for Tony. You're on mute, Tony.
Thank you for that question. Through my research and Tier 2 interventions, we were able to enroll 5 new Black students as juniors into our programs of study, and we have 7 at the Calhoun Area Career Center. I also want to let the folks who are in attendance are going to be watching this video, that was not an improvement. That was just to maintain the current levels. However, if those 5 new juniors did not enroll in our program, then we actually would have had 5 less students than we did when I started the research and the real world project.
So I did want to let's talk a bit about your real world projects. And that's one thing when we talk about the actual application. The one thing that we constantly hear within the CTE community that there isn't enough CTE research, and we'll say lowercase r instead of capital R when having that discussion about research. But I really would love for each of you to share a bit about your real world project, its purpose, and what were some of your findings and your recommendations. So I'll start with Nancy.
My real world project was focused on the concept of local workforce ecosystems and implementing those into the rural communities that I work with, where we wanted to bring together stakeholders in those communities that were really better suited to understand what the needs are, to overcome the barriers that are in place in some of these disadvantaged and distressed areas in West Virginia, particularly where I work. And so the idea that what was happening is there's a lot of state agencies doing this work, but they're not getting deep within these communities who are really the subject matter experts. So pulling together these stakeholders, employers, education, of course, with career and technical education being the component for economic mobility for people to attain skills, and supporting that through the resources that can be provided by stakeholders who are in government, who are in workforce development boards, community-based organizations. So it was really introducing this concept into these small community groups, which was the basis of my real world project.
Thank you, Nancy. Dr. Adams.
So my real world project sought to explore equity-based recommendations for our CTE teacher preparation program. It was grounded in existing research around some of the common barriers that are related to diversifying the CTE teacher instructor pool. I started with this project, still have, extra projects that will be birthed out of this one, but really grounded it in existing secondary data. Did a deep data dive and found a lot of information around our current CTE enrollment in the state, and ultimately realized that we have thousands and thousands of CTE concentrators at the secondary and post-secondary level that we could be using as pools of students for direct recruitment into the CTE teacher preparation program. And as a result of that, I was able to explore ongoing or current and even past initiatives that help maintain teacher recruitment and retention, to again make suggestions that were equity-based based on the framework that the fellowship introduced me to.
So we have a question, and Tony will get to you in just a moment. Dr. Adams, you mentioned that you work with academia as you integrated CTE nuance information into conversations in that audience. What, in your opinion, was the overall perception of CTE among those individuals? Would you say that there is still a stigma tied to the workforce among those communities or these communities?
Unfortunately, I would say that the stigma is still tied there. Even in my own institution, people don't know what we do. They don't understand what we do. They don't understand why we have 8 different tracks for licenses when everybody else is just elementary ed and social studies and English. And so it's really difficult to explain even some of the ways that we recruit our students and accept their work experience as a part of their degree completion, because that's so valuable for the hands-on technical nature of a lot of our CTE programs. And so we still do struggle with explaining what CTE is and what CTE does. And it's a part of the challenge and one of the passions that fuels the work that I try to do. So hopefully I answered that question.
Absolutely. Fantastic response. Tony, share with us a bit about your purpose of your project and some of your findings and some of your recommendations.
So thank you for that question, Dr. Johnson. I think it's important for me to just give a quick overview of the project purpose, which was to increase Black student participation in CACC programs that offer dual enrollment, and give you a little bit of a background of our program here at the Calhoun Area Career Center. We have 20 programs, so I had to work with our staff and our systems, as well as with the sending school, which were the students that will be coming to the Calhoun Area Career Center. So there was a sending school that I targeted to spend the majority of my time and resources to attract those students to be more aware of our programming here at the Calhoun Area Career Center. And I was able to query data and look at our systems. And what we found was that many of the students that were coming to the center, they were coming in part because they visit our building one time a year. And that was okay to maintain the status quo. But if we want to close an enrollment gap, then I had to move to tier 2. So I had meetings with parents, meeting with school counselors, meeting with students over appraisal and advisement to get them to understand the benefits of enrolling in our programs here at the Calhoun Area Career Center and the benefits of dual enrollment. So now we are in the process of encouraging more visits to the center, having mentors and coaches. So they no longer visit the center one time a year. We're ramping it up so that they will have more touch points of visiting the center so they can get acclimated and bringing parents over to our building as well, because there's a misconception of what the Calhoun Area Career Center is all about and what CTE is all about, especially when we're talking about marginalized student groups. And then there was the challenge that some of the counselors faced at our sending school with high caseloads and not having the time necessary through appraisal and advisement to provide them access to the information that they need to make informed choices about our programs of study here.
So a bit of a follow-up that was placed in, Tony, is, and you kind of touched on it, but what was your experience being mainly in a secondary space, but dual credit and dual enrollment, definitely post-secondary. But what was it like to be in a secondary space and a post-secondary fellowship?
As a secondary, and at first I felt a little uncomfortable because many of the fellows were in post-secondary. And then I started to realize that part of my job as a education consultant and school counselor is to prepare and equip, which is a large part of my job, is to prepare and equip students for post-secondary. And through appraisal and advisement, that was part of the reason why I selected dual enrollment, because the research indicates that when students have exposure and access to dual enrollment, it increases their post-secondary preparedness and readiness.
All righty, as we begin the closeout of our Q&A and the closeout of our webinar, I would just like to quickly ask each of you, just broadly, anything you would like to share of one, as we're promoting this Leadership Pipeline Toolkit and the importance of states actually providing this type of training and opportunity, again, states, region, or local institution, providing this type of training and this type of opportunity to mid-career professionals who are aspiring CTE leaders. What's the importance of that as they seek to, one, gain the skills and the knowledge to be successful within CTE and become the future leaders, again, of our states and our institution? And we'll start with Dr. Adams.
I think one of the things that is critical is to just acknowledge the importance of leadership development. I think sometimes we underestimate that, and we just hope that people show up in the ways that we need them to show up and can do the things that we need to be done. But there is a level of intentionality that has to happen. And so I think that through this fellowship and creating additional offerings similar to it really tackle or kind of provide the solution to that existing gap. So just being intentional about what we know we need to be doing to see what we want to see in CTE.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Tony?
Initially, when I addressed the audience earlier, I started with 4 words: leadership, collaboration, advocacy, and systemic change. And we know that through the toolkit and the focus of the fellowship and initiatives like this, systems create outcomes. And I could see the benefit of using the toolkit, especially in leadership positions at the post-secondary level and at my level, which would be called an intermediate school district, as we attract and hire diverse candidates who represent the students that they teach. So this is valuable work that is being done by Advanced CTE and supported by the ECMC Foundation.
And of course, definitely last but not least, Nancy.
Well, I think Dr. Adams and Tony really have covered everything I was thinking too. I think the word toolkit is just a wonderful reflection of the structure of this that I don't myself know is really truly available. And I think I said this to you the other day, Dr. Johnson, having something that's plug and play like this is such a resource when we know that there's not, available resources that everyone can just take advantage of with such ease. So the time and the effort that's been put into this and this experience that we've had as fellows to contribute to that is just tremendous for a state to take this on and develop their own leaders, people in their own community, people who know these communities and who want to move forward. And I think the other part of that from my perspective is I'm very conscientious of continuous improvement all the time. So not just creating these leaders, but continuing to nurture these leaders and create new leaders from those leaders is really what is happening here. And I think that is the standard of leadership. A leader is only a leader if you're producing another leader, right? So I think that what Advanced CTE and ECMC Foundation have done here is tremendous work, and it should be utilized.
Amazing. Thank you. And again, you are the success story of the fellowship. And so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your fellowship experiences. So at this point, we'll go ahead and I want to share some information with you before we close out. And we'll go ahead and share our screen again. And so here is a tremendous opportunity that's available to states that are taking a look at the toolkit. And here's an opportunity. We have a pilot in-state fellowship funded by the ECMC Foundation for states that want to launch their own fellowship program. Now, so here's what we're offering. Here's the pilot program that's offering funding, $80,000 to a selected state. You'll go through an RFP application process. So that $80,000 in funds is meant to ensure that you can pay your fellowship administrator, the advisory committee members that participate in helping you design and select your fellows, the coaches that will support your fellowship, and even funding that's set aside for curriculum design. Now, you have the toolkit as a base for your fellowship program, but there are additional pieces that you need to customize, again, for your state, and this is specifically for a state fellowship. But if there are pieces that you need to customize for your state fellowship, there's funding available for you to add that context and that information that's specific to your state. So we wanted to make sure that, again, that we let you know about this opportunity. You will see, please follow up with us and you can email me and ask any questions in regards to this, and I'll make sure to send you the RFP application that opens in April. With that, if you are an individual that's on this call that's interested in, oh, I'm sorry, you can go back to the previous, yes. If you're an individual that's on this call that may be interested in a fellowship or know someone that may be interested in our fellowship, we are opening cohort 3 of the fellowship, and that application opened on March 4th and it closes April the 5th. So you have about 2 weeks if you're interested to go ahead and apply for the fellowship for cohort 3. Each of our previous fellowships only accepted 15 individuals. This fellowship, we're accepting 20. And so you can apply here. We just dropped the link in the chat for you. Again, if you are interested or know someone that's interested, please share this link with them. And again, the application closes April the 15th. And yes, Tony, that was heavy-handed. I made sure to include the photo here that had you listed. All righty, so with that being said, as the webinar closes out, you will have an eval that will populate as soon as you close out of the Zoom call. So please respond to the eval. Let us know what you thought about today's webinar. Let us know how we can better serve you. If there's some information you wanted to know more about, please let us know. And if you want to reach out to me, my email has just been dropped in the chat. You have any questions about the toolkit, if you'd like to contact any of our speakers here today or other fellows, we will have a directory of our alumni members coming soon where you can reach them, take a look at their work, and lean in on their expertise and their background and their experiences to assist you with a project or an initiative that you are undertaking in your state, region, or at your local institution. With that, I would like to say thank you, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be a part of this Advanced CTE webinar virtual learning series. Thank you and have a wonderful day.